All right, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm joined by Christian Lange. Christian is a fellow content creator who makes a lot of stuff on health, wellness, sleep, diet, just being a high performing human. And so, I wanted to chat with him today about some of the systems that he's got down in his own life and then what he would recommend myself or anybody else start to implement into their own life. So, Christian, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, of course, Alex. Thank you for having me. Any chance I get to come on and voice my marginal opinion on some of this stuff is great. I think that any way that we're able to, help people out and maybe give them a different perspective or use the ridiculous amount of hours of research that I do to help anyone out and maybe save them some time here and there is kind of the goal. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, you just got back from Iceland. How was
I did.
that? How was that?
Beautiful country. I ended up I I tend to surf Google Flights every once in a while when I'm bored and whatnot, and I ended up finding a great deal. Obviously, it's February in Iceland, so it's a little bit colder. But being from Minnesota, that didn't scare me away too much.
What's the
Got a great.
temperature? What's the
Right
temperature
now,
like?
it's in Iceland. It was 30 to 40 Fahrenheit. Yeah, so not too bad. Like right now in Minnesota this morning, I think it was 9
Holy,
Fahrenheit. So
holy crap.
So exactly, yeah. So it's not too bad. It was almost a warm vacation getaway, if you want to call it that. But it was pretty great. It's a beautiful country. The cool thing about Iceland was that on sea level, it's green down there, but you can drive around the ring road and you'll get different altitudes. And up there, they're packed 3 feet of snow. So being able to see both sides was pretty awesome. And also, I left my laptop at home for the first time in a couple of years. So being able to kind of have a digital detox from that was good in its own way as well.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I feel like I get stressed if honestly, if I go too long, meaning like 48 hours,
Right.
like I gotta do something. I'm freaking out right now. How long were you there?
I was there for seven days or 7 nights technically, but one of the nights was overnight in a plane, so I didn't really count it.
Yeah,
But I thought
nice.
it was a perfect amount of time, especially with I get the same feeling of a little bit of stress and anxiety built up if I'm away from my duties or whatever you want to call them for too long. So it was good. It was perfect. Nothing too crazy, and I felt that we got everything in that we could. Obviously, with some of the winter aspects, the roads and hikes and whatnot were closed, but a good amount of it was open. So it was great.
Yeah, very cool. No, that's awesome to hear. So right now you're training for a marathon. Is this your second marathon? Third?
Yep.
Fourth? Okay, second one. So tell
hmm
me, before we get into that, like how did your first marathon go? Tell me the story of that. What'd you learn from it? How do you feel like it went?
I thought that it honestly was more difficult than most people would seem. My training happened to be in my freshman year of high school, which is a time that, as most people know, is for exploring and a lot of partying, which is definitely not great for your training. So being able to kind of attempt to balance fitting in socially, getting into the academics of college, which is obviously different from high school. So getting situated with that, trying to make friends and whatnot was definitely the hardest part. I ended up falling off with my training towards the end, and I don't think I went for a run. This isn't. I don't recommend this. Don't do this. This is bad advice. But I don't think I went for a run for the last 3 weeks of my training, which I definitely ended up feeling on race day, and I regretted it for sure about halfway through the race. But yeah, I'm doing it right this time. I'm on week 10. Got a 10-mile, 10.5 mile long run tomorrow with some marathon pace blocks in there, and I'm excited. I've been feeling really great and really fortunate to not be injured. I think that is probably the biggest thing that holds people back, besides the fact that signing up might be the hardest part, but staying healthy is definitely a huge issue for people, especially if you haven't run in the past. Like between that, my first race and this one, it's been 2.5 years. So I took a considerable amount of time off, but getting back into it, I made sure that I started the races in June. So, and I started in December. So I really made sure that I had some runway with my training, and I'm only running 3 times a week, which is I think pretty comparable for most people. But some people do 5 times, and I think if I'd ended up doing that, I would have already been hurt or something worse. So I'm doing it right this time. Yep.
How do you feel like, I mean, I definitely get where you're coming from. Last time I did a half marathon, I just freaking raw dogged it. My
Hmm.
girlfriend was training for one, and then I decided I was going to do it with her. I did an 8 mile run, a 11 mile run, and then I took 3 weeks off, and then I just did it.
Hmm.
And prior to that, I had never run more than a 10K. And now I'm prepping for my marathon, which is in April. So sooner than
Nice.
yours. And I did not start training until January. So I'm a little compressed time wise. How do you feel like you manage things like injury, recovery, etc.? Just making sure your body doesn't break down. Because I definitely get what you're saying, where you start running, you're good for a couple days. All of a sudden, the bottoms of your feet hurt, your shins bug you. You take three
Hmm.
days off, then you're trying to get back into it. Where does that land for you?
Yeah, I think I'll start at the kind of the base. Like I said, I got a 7 month runway. Some of the first 3 weeks of my training were 3, 4, 5 mile runs, which depending on the person, if you have some sort of athletic background or if you've run in the past, maybe you've cycled or swam, cardiovascular wise, and maybe you've done weights to hit legs or something. Typically, that builds up enough of a base where you can run 3, 4, 5 miles. And if you do that consecutively for 3 weeks, it allows you to kind of build that base and then start building upon it. I think that in terms of staying injury free, I've continued to do leg workouts with weights every single week for at least once a week, typically twice a week. And I think that that by far is the biggest factor in staying injury free. If you do a variety of exercises, squats, leg extensions, leg curls, you're hitting a lot of the tendons in the knee, inside and outside, as well as your quads, which is a big factor in terms of cramping. I think that that is by far the best thing for injury prevention. I will admit that I haven't been the best in terms of stretching or doing mobility work, but I think that that is also very beneficial. I like to think that my variety of leg exercises does that enough for me, and it has so far. But I think as I get deeper into this prep with 30, 40, 50 mile weeks, I'll need to start doing some stretching because the recovery between doing a 9 mile run and then 2 days later doing a 17 mile run, I just don't know if my body's built for that. Some people are genetically gifted where they can run 100 mile weeks. There's some guys on Instagram that I see that are doing 10 miles a day at a 7:30 pace every single morning, and I can't fathom the fact that they're not injured. And it's honestly super respectable, and maybe they're oftentimes they are doing things on the side with stretching and mobility that do allow them to do that, but it's not always shown. So you just kind of see that the highlight reel of the 10 mile runs every single morning, and you don't really know what goes into it. But
How do you feel like that breaks down between training and just, spending years and years and years to get to that point? And then how much is just we have genetic freaks that can do insane things?
it's really hard to say because there's a guy named Kalai on Instagram, and he blew up in the last year roughly. And I've been following him for a long time now, and he used to post these videos of him getting up at 4:30 in the morning and doing these 10 to 13 mile runs before work and everything. And you would see, and he would do the like transition or like the progress videos from like this is where I was to here. And he had not run, I don't know if he's not showing all of it or not, but he had not run faster than a 12-minute mile for, I think it was, maybe it was 10-minute mile for 3 miles, which in terms of what he's doing now is slow, right? But over the past year, he has progressed, and I think that he's just a genetic freak. But also the videos that he's posted has proven that he has put in the work and the time to be able to do that. So I think typically, especially with these high level men and women, they are both genetically gifted and they work extremely hard, and the combination of those two is what the result is on Instagram when you see these crazy outputs. So
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said about having just kind of an edge in anything in life. And I think everybody has one, whether you are far more intellectually gifted than most people. You're just more adapted to be able to run long distances. You're able to put on more muscle, whatever it is. I think everybody's going to have an edge somewhere. But at the same time, like you're saying, I do think there's a lot to be said about where somebody who is maybe just quote unquote average in any endeavor can really get themselves just after continuous training over and over and over.
Yeah, I would say there are certain things in life, such as like Truett Haynes, for example, is doing
Insane.
Yep, insane. He's trying to qualify for Olympic trials with I think it's 2:16 marathon is the time he needs. And a lot of people are saying that he just doesn't have the genetic makeup for it, right? The bone structure, like some of these guys, I think I saw, oh, I want to say it was yesterday or 2 days ago, that the average height and weight of Olympic marathoners is 5'6" to 5'7" and 150 to 155 pounds, which is like a small build. I think Truett Haynes is 6 foot and like 165 pounds, maybe 170. So just certain factors like that. But I do truly believe that outside of the Olympic trial, strongest man in the world, certain things where you truly do need that genetic edge, that you can almost outwork anyone and get to that point, right? You just need to put in the hours with a lot of that stuff, whether it's mentally stimulating, like learning skills like content, or you're at school, you're learning engineering or whatever. You just need to put in the hours. But I would say that you do. Oh man, I want to phrase this correctly. I think that you need to be obsessed, right? That's what it comes down to. And if you kind of go back into your life and think about anything that has worked out, like you graduated college or you've amassed X amount of followers on social media platforms, that's because most of that stuff, not all of it, some of it's luck, some of it's whatever it might be, but a lot of it is because you become obsessed with something. And if you just put your head down and you make something your sole focus, I think anyone's capable of just about anything outside of a few things that we just talked about.
I mean, firstly, it's crazy. I didn't realize that. I would imagine Olympic runners to be taller than that. 5'6" or 5'7" is pretty short.
I don't want. Don't quote me on it.
Yeah,
but I
for
saw
sure. Yeah.
someone. I saw the post, and then I saw someone on a podcast reacting to the post, and I want to say that the weight was for sure
Right.
150 pounds. Like that's
Interesting.
I know that for sure. Maybe some guys they average a little bit taller, depending on what the country of origin or
For sure.
what marathon you're pulling from or whatnot. I mean I think it's, at least in my own experience, it's kind of a no-brainer. But I ran that first race at 200 and like 200 pounds, 195, 200 roughly, and I'm currently training at 185. And it's a world of difference carrying 10 to 15 less pounds. You are so much lighter in terms of how much air you're intaking, how much pressure you're putting on your shins, your ankles, your knees. Just I mean, running it's a high impact sport, especially if you're running on pavement. So having all of that extra weight, that's why guys like Nick Bear, who are 200, I think he's 215 pounds, for him to be able to run 3 hour, 3:10 marathons at that weight without being injured it's a feat in itself.
No, and like you're saying, I mean, when it comes to trying to push to the absolute extremes, I feel like so many people get caught up on this. Well, I'm not genetically gifted. I can't go and do X, Y, and Z. But I feel like you have to ask yourself, what is your goal? Like, is your goal to qualify for the Olympics? And most people, it's not. It's just, I want to run a marathon, and therefore, very, very, very attainable as far as I'm concerned.
And I do think that starting small is a big thing as well, because when you start small and you are able to achieve these smaller goals, say, I want to run a 5K or a 10K or a half marathon. Typically, what happens, at least for I found with myself, is I started running and I liked it, ran a 5K, 10K, half marathon. And I'm like, okay, what's next? So typically, that's the way to go about things, is you don't want to just shoot for the stars with something, because most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, you're going to end up burning yourself out. And that is potentially the worst thing for you. It's kind of the same thing with content. When you start, you gotta know that you're making the video for nobody, right? If you're starting with a raw account, you need to just do it because you want to be learning something and you want to try stuff. You're not trying to get 1 million followers in the next month, right? Obviously, some people have had that goal and some people have even attained it. But for the average person, you need to put things into perspective. And I think that a lot of the gratitude and the progress and growth that people get shouldn't be from getting to that number, that quantified number, right? It should just be from progressing as a person and feeling like you're getting better at said thing, right?
I think there's a lot to be said about what you allow yourself to feel a win from. I think a lot of people all end up doing the exact same thing. Maybe they all run a 5K. One person just feels like they ran a 5K. Another person feels like that's a victory for them.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, the momentum that you get from just feeling like, hell yeah, I did this. Oh my God, I finally got X, Y, and Z results will then compound over time and actually allow you to go and accomplish way more than if you just ran 3 miles.
Totally.
You make a lot of content just on wellness, health, fitness, etc. Where do you feel like people are lacking the most in terms of just general health basics?
I think it's becoming a much bigger thing now at least that I've seen on social media, but sleep. It is the core pillar of your health. You can be in like peak condition. We could just talk about marathon. You can be a peak marathoner and let your sleep start slipping and everything falls apart, right? I think a lot of people's problems in their life are downstream from not taking care of their sleep, right? If you're not getting enough hours, you are cognitively slipping, and that's research backed, right? Your training is going to be worse. You're not going to be recovering as much. You're not going to be building as much muscle. Same thing with running. You're going to be more prone for injury, right? And I think that somewhere along the way, specifically our generation, coined it a little bit like cool or edgy or whatever you want to call it to not get a lot of sleep. Like it was almost cool, right? To get 4 or 5 hours. When in reality, that is quite possibly the worst thing for your body. And I know that especially between my friends and what I've seen on the internet, people are waking up a little bit, no pun intended, but they're starting to see the research. And I think that Huberman has done a really great job of illustrating that, and the way that his podcast has blown up. Joe Rogan has had some great guests on. Chris Williamson has had some great guests on. And I think that the publicity that it's getting and the way that these podcasters and their guests are framing the impact of sleep, both mentally and physically, is making people kind of check back into the reality in that way.
So sleep 101, then what should we care about? What should we not care about? And also, what is true and what's just a complete myth?
Yeah, there's a few gray areas with the research. There's a bunch of studies that say one thing, and then there's a few studies that say the opposite. And you kind of got to test things for yourself. That's something that I will say. Sleep is a personalized thing, and what works for you is not going to work for someone else most of the time. And I think that this is a big point that I want to make sure that I touch on before I get into it. Sleep is something that people happen to obsess over. There's people who don't care about it at all, but there's also people that care about it a little too much. And having sleep anxiety is a real problem. People worry too much about how little sleep they're getting, or if they're maybe going on their phone, or if they're having a late meal, or if they had caffeine late in the day, right? And they're getting this built up anxiety before they go to bed. And that in itself, this built up anxiety and this not getting yourself in a sleep mode before, is going to do more harm than maybe getting 30 minutes less of sleep. And I think that the idea around sleep shouldn't be, I've made a few sleep maxing videos, and the idea of those videos is to just inform people about the things that have been proven to be good for your sleep. Not to say that you need to do all 10 of these things, otherwise your sleep's going to suck and you're going to be tired and all this stuff, right? You just need to pick a few things that work for your schedule and work for your body. And if you can hammer those on a consistent basis, you're going to be so much better off than most people. If we go into So I'll just after we clarified the whole anxiety thing, I think that don't obsess over your sleep. Don't get anxious over it. You need to allow yourself some time to get into the mode for sleep. And that's going to be my first thing is you need to allow 30, 45 minutes, an hour, honestly, whatever your life allows you to get into that mode. Read, stay off your phone, wind down, don't think about work. There should be a persona. This should be sleep Christian and work Christian, right? You should be getting into your persona to get ready for bed because, and I am admittedly horrible at this. I typically work and stress about stuff all the way up until the 15 minutes before I go to bed, and it's not good for me, but that's just the point in my life that I'm at. So I think that if you're able to set aside a good amount of time to just wind down, that's is whatever it needs to be. Just wind down, de-stress, don't eat, just I don't know, just do your thing. And if you can do that, you're going to be so much better off. I think past that, locking down, they kind of go hand in hand, but locking down a firm bedtime is a super important thing. If you have a set bedtime, say 10 p.m. is your bedtime, then 9 p.m. rolls around and you need to start winding down. And have a set wake up time as well. I think that this is a little bit less important, but I would say that they're pretty close. If your body gets into, say, I don't know, there's varying research on this, but having 1 week consistent of same exact bedtime, same exact wake up time. There's a bunch of studies that show that this is just immensely beneficial because your body is on a clock, right? Once your body gets acclimated to this clock, it'll know that 9 p.m. It's 9 p.m. It's time to start winding down, and you'll be able to fall asleep so much faster, wake up so much easier without as much brain fog, and not the feeling of wanting to roll back into bed. I would say I can keep going. I got so many.
Keep going. Keep riffing.
I have also struggled with this, not eating close to your bed. You should be cutting off food probably 90 minutes before bed. My family ate dinner historically super late. So that's just how I adopted it. And I also have been on my meal timing for running. I need to eat a little bit more and when I want to gain muscle. So it's harder to get in that amount of food if I don't eat a little bit close to bed. But if you can push that back 90 minutes, that's great. I would say water, 45 minutes. You don't want to be waking up in the middle of the night, having to use the bathroom. That's also bad for your sleep. Not the worst thing, but not the best as well. Let's think. Caffeine. This is a gray area. I also have messed around with this a little bit. It varies by person. I know people that can drink caffeine at 5 p.m. and fall asleep like that. Not to say that their heart rate isn't going to be elevated overnight, but they don't have trouble falling asleep, and that's what works for their schedule. That's great. I think personally, the most research is cut off 8 hours, preferably 10. Some say 12. I would say probably 8 is more than good enough. It can be hard depending on your work schedule. People work different. Like some people work 9 to 5. Some people work 3 to 11. Some people work 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. Like it's just going to be different for everybody. But those are kind of the golden rules for sleep that I personally have tested and found that I've worked best for me.
Going off of people with crazy schedules, this is mostly applicable to me back when I was in engineering school because when I was taking 20 to 24 credit hours, working, trying to do, climbing mountains, training jujitsu, doing all these random things. So my schedule was insane. And then there's just so many people now that maybe they have graduated, but they work an inconsistent work schedule. They have 4 days on. One of those days they're working 15 hours that day or whatever. Where do you recommend people pay attention to when they have an inconsistent work schedule?
Yeah, I actually had someone reach out to me about this. They said that they worked it's gonna beat me up to remember, but it was the same schedule for 4 days of the week, and I believe it was a night shift. I think it was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then they had a few shifts where it was 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. and they asked what I thought the best window of sleep would be. And what I told them was the best window of sleep is the one that works for you, obviously. But what you have to do is you have to find a happy medium. You need to, if you, I don't know, say they get off work and it takes them a couple hours to wind down, they don't feel like they can get to bed within 45 minutes of getting off work, then you know that and you need to adjust. So I think just testing it as close to in the middle as you can. But the more important thing is not how many hours before work or how many hours after work I should be getting to bed. It is when I'm not working, I am keeping that sleep schedule, right? So if that person works 4 days, those 1 or 2 days that they're not working, you should be trying to keep the same sleep schedule. Obviously, it's going to be difficult because all of your friends and family are going to be on the normal 9 to 5 work schedule and the normal sleeping hours. But you just need to find people. There's communities out there. For example, there's communities out there that you can find people with similar working hours and you can find activities to do with them. Like find people to play video games with at that time, find people to chat with like we're doing right now. Just find things to do that fit within that work schedule because the consistency of wake and bedtimes is going to be the most important thing for people with those abnormal schedules.
Absolutely. That totally makes sense. Are there any sort of super easy hacks or tricks that you can implement? Because I see so much stuff about, well, set a timer before you go to bed to remind you that it's time to get ready and wake up at the same time. And all those things are great. And I agree that those are really the big rocks that we all should be paying attention to. At the same time, reality is so many people are going to go, oh, that's great, and then never do it. Is
Mm-hmm.
there anything that you feel like is just so easy that it's just, come on, do this thing. It's simple and it'll help?
That's a hard one because it's everyone's lives are going to be a little bit different. I would say that we are fortunate enough in this day and age that there's a lot of great technology out there. I know of a few apps that allow you to put your exact schedule in. So for example, that person that I just talked about with their abnormal work schedule, some days on, some days off, some days different hours, you can actually put that in to an app and it'll tell you, hey, cut off your meals here on this day. Cut off your water at this time on this day. So I think that just leveraging your resources is a huge thing. I think that having people around you, say you live with a girlfriend or a boyfriend or friends, family, whoever it might be, but having people that can remind you a little bit or at least supportive of your goals, is a good thing. Having because it's obviously our minds our life is busy, man. Like it's hard to remember everything and it is frankly it's impossible to remember everything. So having someone or multiple people in your life that can kind of back you in that sense is very important. You can't do everything yourself, no matter if it's sleep or building a $1 trillion business. You're gonna need people to support you, and you're gonna need people to remind you because our brains are only so big.
Yeah, community is everything. I don't understand the whole mentality of don't tell people your goals until you've accomplished them. I think it's so dumb, frankly, in
Yeah.
my opinion. I mean, the accountability that you get from telling people, hey, I'm trying to go and do this thing, I feel like is a massive bonus. This year, at the very start of the year, I think on January 1st, we held a PowerPoint party, but it was literally just everybody talking about their goals. To me, that is huge. And some people have these massive, crazy, audacious goals. Like you're saying, I'm going to go become a millionaire this year. And then other people, it is just like, I need to get my sleep schedule in check.
Yep.
But having people that can hold you accountable and just go, how's the sleep thing going? You have bags under your eyes. You look super tired. What's going on there? It's massive, man.
It is. And for some people it's harder to find people that align with their goals, especially as we age and we grow out of college and high school and people drift apart and whatnot. It is difficult to find people that kind of share similar interests, but I do think that's super important. You always hear this is a cliche quote, but it's you're like the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around, right? So I think that having a circle that can both remind you but also push you in a appropriate manner to be a better version of yourself is also so important. I love that PowerPoint thing. I think I forget, we talked about 1 or 2 years ago, but we talked about doing something like that for vacations.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah,
I've seen people do it for goals, but trips as well. And that's another topic that I think we should talk about
for
is
sure.
that release. We brought it up earlier, but the release of almost anxiety and your ability to not get away when it comes to trips. And I guess I wanted to kind of know when you travel, what kind of trips do you look for, and kind of what do you look to actually get out of it? Because I know it's great to go and have a beer on a beach and stuff, but a lot of the benefit that you get from that is a mental release and a detox. And I have struggled with it, and you kind of alluded to it as well. But I think that's an important topic that a lot of people similarly struggle with. So,
Yeah, I mean, going off of where you're at, I'm big on adventure, and anybody who's been consuming me for a long time knows that's what I yap about constantly. Breaking down sort of what I do, my just general uh, outlook on life and adventure is we should try to do something every single week that we used to do as we were when we were kids, or that just makes us have a fun time. So tactically, how I break it down personally, every single week, so 52 times a year, I think. Apparently there's 53 weeks this year. I don't know. I haven't checked, but that's what everyone
hmm
tells me. I do one, what I call a micro adventure, which could be something as simple as I'm going to a coffee shop. I'm going to go take a walk around this park that I've never gone to go see. I'm going to go do this hike. Then once a quarter, or once every 2 months, so 6 times a year, I take a mini adventure. And for me this year, I'm going to the Utah National Parks. So Zion, Arches, Canyonlands, Capitol Reef, and Bryce. And then I'll also be
beautiful.
doing, yeah, they're pretty places. We'll see. I might try to swing up to like Grand Teton or Yellowstone or something too. Um, but I do a mini adventure, and that allows me to just kind of step away and have really just a weekend for myself. Like we're doing Arches and Canyonlands. We're going to be there for 3 days. And so it's not that long. It ends up for me being pretty affordable. We go with a group of friends that we all kind of adventure with. So we book an Airbnb. It's $100 a person, and
Awesome.
you drive down there. It's a 3 hour drive for me, and just go hang out. That's a great time to allow me to just, like you're saying, decompress, get away from all the work and whatever. And for some people, maybe even doing that is not necessarily in the cards for them right now. They're going to school, they don't have the funds to go and do that. Totally fine. I mean, literally grab a tent, drive up into the mountains or into a field, pitch the tent, and sleep there. It's going to cost $18 to park, and anybody can do that. Um, then once a year, something I got from Jesse Itzler, but I do a masogi, which is basically the notion on that is a Japanese ritual where you do one massive year defining hard thing every single year. And for me, I've been doing that since I was 21, I think, 20 or 21. I climbed a 14er. I went and did Mount Elbert in 2023 or 2024, sorry. 2025, I climbed Mount Adams, which is the largest volcano in Washington. And then I also did my master's degree. This year, I'm going to be doing Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, and I'm producing an album because I'm a musician. But find something that's not work related that you can strive for. So that way you have this fun, this adventure, this newness, but you don't feel this pressure of, oh my God, I have to make money. Oh my God, I have to make sure this thing works. It's just for fun. And then I take an international trip every year. We're going to go to Canada. We're thinking, me and my girlfriend are back and forth between Calgary and Banff area and then Vancouver. We're thinking probably Vancouver, but we'll see. That's kind of where I stand on
Yeah,
that.
Vancouver's beautiful.
Yeah.
I Banff is also Banff sounds like it's more in your you named like Zion and Tetons and whatever, and I did Banff, and there's some beautiful Lake Moraine and Louise.
Hmm.
Those two, they have some great hikes around there. Beautiful area. I saw a podcast 2 days ago, and I'm not gonna remember who it was about or what it was because I was just mindlessly consuming. But they talked about the idea that people take vacations not as much because they like need to, I don't know, go to a beach or go skiing, but more because the idea of a vacation is about leaving your house. Because, and you just kind of talked about it about like going to a coffee shop or going to a park, because going, say you take your family out to, I don't know, maybe you're just going for a weekend, you're going to Vancouver, for example. You're leaving your house, and your house is typically, at least for me, when I'm in my house, I have a sense of guilt that I should be working on stuff. So being able to leave that space behind is very important. I'm big on changing your surroundings. I love going to coffee shops and working in abnormal places because I feel like it allows my mind to wander a little bit more. Whereas when I'm at home, I'm a little bit more siloed in my work, and I feel like I relate the space to certain things and certain things that I need to get completed. So at least for me, I've kind of taken the perspective a little bit more about taking the vacation or just leaving my house to just escape the direction that my house or my typical area pushes me in, and not as much about, I don't know, wanting to have a beer on a beach, but the more the mental side of things, because I think especially as I've gotten older, it's a lot more difficult to escape that side of things, but you gotta find ways to kind of get there.
Yeah, I mean, the work's always going to fill in.
Hmm.
No matter what happens with our schedule, you're going to be working. And I mean, I think most of the people that are going to be listening to this are probably in a similar mindset to us, where, yeah, I mean, if you're just kind of sitting there twiddling your thumbs, suddenly you're a horrible human. You need to be working harder. You have a million things you got to go and do.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we only, the average age that people die is 78 in America. The average age of men that people die, the average age that people die at for men is 78 years old.
Hmm.
And I want to make the most out of that time. Obviously, like I'm saying, the work's going to fill in. You're going to be able to make the money. You're going to have the success that you want. But why not have a little bit of fun while you're at it? And I don't personally subscribe to the notion that you need to lock yourself in a room from 20 to 30, grind, never experience anything. And then when you're 31, magically you're going to have all this success, and then you can go and live your life. I think you can live your life and still work your absolute ass off when it comes to whatever it is that you're trying to pursue.
Totally. And I am a big believer that in your 20s, and I mean, this is statistically proven, that you have more time now in terms of free time than you ever will. So you do need to use it effectively, because some people, I mean, just turned 23, and at my age, some people already are married and have kids and have a house. But for most people, that's a couple years down the line still, right? And right now, you're not taking care of a child, or you're not cleaning your house, or you're not as high up at your job, right? So you have a ton of less responsibilities. So I think that you do need to maximize your free time, but at the same time, the burnout that people experience from locking yourself in a room and not allowing yourself to be expressive or meet new people or have new experiences is it's true, and it would almost do more harm than good. Obviously, if you're not doing any work outside of I don't know, your 9 to 5 or whatever that might be, then that's an extreme case. But for most people, there is a happy balance. And to kind of touch on the point that you just mentioned about when you hit 31, that you're going to have all of this success and wealth and stuff. There are so many high achievers that I've seen on podcasts that talk about their inability to have an off switch. So the idea that you are going to hit 31, and even if you are successful, say you hit those numbers, you make 5 million, 10 million, 20 million bucks, you have all of this external success, you have a beautiful wife and kids, right? It's the likelihood that you're able to turn that switch off is almost zero. And people often think that their happiness is a great, I don't know if it's Chris Williamson, but he says it. People often think that their happiness lies on this behind the next set of goals, when in reality you're just going to hit that next set of goals and you're going to want more. And that's not wrong, that's not bad, that's just human nature. I experienced it with graduating college, right? I got done and I'm like, okay, I want a six-figure job, and like you get that and you're like, oh, I want to get a promotion or something. And then same thing with marathons. run a 4 hour marathon and you're like, that's not good enough. I want a 3:45 marathon, and it's just endless. And content, for example, you get 1,000 followers, you're like, I want 2,000, I want 5,000, I want 20. So the reality is you're never going to be truly satisfied with whatever next set of goals you have. You just have to find the happiness and the satisfaction in the small things. There was oh man, um, I want to say it's Daniel Kahneman, but I might be getting that wrong. I want to say it was either him or someone else interviewed 400 billionaires. And he said that when he was done, there were 2 billionaires out of all 400 that he said he would actually switch lives with.
Wow.
Yep.
Holy cow.
Because on the surface they have the boat, the yacht, the 5 houses in 5 different countries, right? All of these uh, tangible items that represent success. But even after they get that, you go and you watch their lives, and they are still drowning in anxiety and stress. And they don't have time for the things that actually matter in their life, right? They are so overwhelmed with their company or just trying to write the next set of goals. They're so overwhelmed with hitting the next set of goals that they don't take time to spend time with their kids or their spouse or whatever, or their friends, whatever it might be. So I know that's kind of my perspective on that. You should work really hard. You should also enjoy yourself, but you also shouldn't put all the weight of your happiness behind the next set of goals that, like, and since you haven't experienced them, right? Who are you to say that they're going to make you happy? You don't know, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, you've already achieved things that you said would make you happy.
That's another part of that quote. It's good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the duality of being a human and, you know, a high performer, if that's what we want to call it. You're always going to check the box and move on. That's how I am. That's how you are. That's how basically everybody is. And just like you're saying, it's, okay, I'm going to graduate high school. Then I have to get into the most prestigious college. You do that. Now I have to graduate college with a 4.0 and be at the top of my class. You do that. Now I have to go and make 70, 80, 90, $100,000, $150,000, whatever. Do it. Check the box. Move on. And I think there's a lot of benefit to that. I think it allows you to progress really quickly. At the same time, what is it all for? I guess is what I look at. When it comes to making money, obviously we all want to make more money. That's just a given. Anybody who says I want to make less money, I think is completely full of it. Everyone wants to make more money. But at the same time, why are you making the money? If you have $50 million, but you're not spending it, what is the point, I guess? And for me, that's why I really prioritize travel, adventure, climbing a mountain, just doing these things that I enjoy, because when all is said and done, when I hit that 78 or hopefully 90 or 100, whatever, I want to know that I actually lived my life and I got to experience as much as I could from this insane world. There's 193 countries. There's 50 states. There's so many crazy things you can go and see. I mean, you just spent a week in Iceland and you're telling me about how it's one of the most amazing places that you've ever been. And so many people will just rob themselves of that opportunity because either they want to hoard more cash, they want to keep on working, they just can't allow themselves to take a step back for a minute.
Yeah, and you kind of hit on a good point about like what is it all for. I want to touch on that a little bit, because there are a lot of things. I'll focus on money for this sake, but people, if you have a defined goal, right? Say you want to make enough money so that your kids can go to college and not have to pay for it, right? And maybe you buy their first car. That's great. And I think that applies to all areas of your life. You do need to have a why for everything, right? If you're just doing things because someone told you that that's what you should do. I just made a video about someone setting your goals for you, right? Because a lot of the time, especially with social media nowadays, man, it is so bad. Like people scroll for hours and hours and hours, and they see this fantasy life that people live. And the reality is, what you see on your phone is almost always a facade and not the reality of their life, right? You see this couple who's in Italy and there's like this beautiful sunset and all this stuff, but 10 minutes before they made this video, they'd gotten a huge argument, right? And like you just don't see that sort of stuff. So being self-aware and knowing one, what is in your capabilities to get, and two, what you actually want out of your life, having a good plan, I want to say like even 10-year plan, like I want to kids, wife, travel, whatever it might be. Having that allows you to formulate your short-term goals a lot better versus seeing stuff on social media and being like, wow, that looks awesome. When in reality, like I said before, who are you to say that that's awesome? You haven't got there yet. It could suck, and this person is just playing it off to be awesome because that's what get likes and that's what gets views, right?
Yeah. I think so many people need to firstly unplug and then spend a considerable amount of time defining what they actually want out of their life. Because I think so many of us set our goals based off of the approval we're going to get from others when we hopefully accomplish said thing. And you also have no idea, like you're saying, where you're going to be at on the other side of that thing. And so, yeah, I mean, so many people, they do these things because they say that they want it. But when you really get down to the core of it, they don't give a shit. They don't care about making this amount of money or going to this place. What they want to, so many people are like, what I want to do is just drive my car up into a canyon, pitch a tent, camp out overnight, hang with my 5 friends around the campfire, play some guitar. That's their definition of a great life. If your definition of a great life truly is, I want a Ferrari, I want a Lamborghini, a yacht, great. Go and get it.
Mm-hmm.
But how many people are setting these goals for these crazy, audacious things that honestly they don't care about?
It all comes down to external validation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily a bad thing because it drives you to grow and want to achieve things, but at the same time, like if your only why for doing these things, if you really sat down, true believer, and if you really sat down and you said, okay, these are the goals that I have in my head currently, maybe I wrote them down, whatever it might be. If you pick through them and you kind of deciphered the why behind them, a lot of that stuff would be because you want to be externally validated. And I'm a proponent of that as well, right? Like I say I want to get 3:30 in my marathon, right? Do I want to get that because I want to post on social media that I got 3:30 so then people will see that I'm physically somewhat fit, or do I want to do it because I want to prove to myself that I can do hard things and I can push my body and I can stay consistent with something that sucks? Like I'm not going to pretend to be someone who says that they really love running, right? Like there are a lot of things that I do love about it, but specifically for a marathon, like I like going out for a 5K and running pretty fast and getting a good sweat going, get my heart rate up and that stuff. But when I wake up tomorrow morning and I got 10.5 miles and my legs hurt, right? And I have a headache, I don't love that. I wish I didn't have to do it, but proving myself that I can stick to my word and my goals is a big thing as well. So I think it just stems from where are you getting your why from? And if it truly isn't from the external validation of other people, then I think that you're way farther ahead than the majority of your peers. So
I'm a big proponent of putting your phone on do not disturb, throwing it in a backpack and walking out your front door for 12 hours and coming back.
mm-hmm.
Because I did that last year. I'm going to do it again this year. And I think I'm going to do it every single year and maybe a couple times a year if I can find the weekends to go and do it. But allowing yourself, take a vow of silence, walk out your front door and walk for 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever. And actually, no bullshit, try to figure out what do I care about? Because ultimately, I mean, I laid out what my 5 values are in life. For me, it's adventure, creativity, health and wellness, community, and then freedom of time, the ability for me to go and do what I want to do when I want to do it. Those 5 values are not money. I do need money to go and do those things, albeit climbing mountains is freaking expensive. It's way expensive to go climb a mountain. Just the gear that I haul up some of these things, I'm like, this is 10 grand right here. This is ridiculous. But that there is me spending money on something that I actually care about. It's not the fancy car, the fancy house, or whatever. And I think just figuring out what do you actually care about, like we're saying right now, is at the end of the day, you're just going to be a happier human. And I think that's going to allow you to actually accomplish more things, anyways. If you know what you're working for, if you know why you want the money, why you want the success, why you want the followers, it's going to become so much easier to actually go and attain those things.
Yep. And that's your why, right? You laid out all these things that you want, and your why behind what you're doing and why you're working so hard is so that you can get money or get time to do all of these things. And people say it all the time, but I'm a firm believer of true wealth isn't the Ferrari or the whatever, the mansion or the jet or whatever it might be, but it's your ability to do what you want with your time. So if your money allows you to have more free time and take more time off, then that's the richest that you can be, right?
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
a lot of the things that we're talking about now, I kind of want to spin it back to the health thing because I just saw one of the creators that I follow. His name's Ahmed. He does just these voiceover talking videos, but he injured his back like a week ago, and he posted a video about how everyone has all of these problems until they have a health problem. And I think that a lot of these things that we want, whether it be a Ferrari or climbing a mountain or spending time with your family, a lot of these things all, like they can't be achieved if you're not taking care of yourself, right? You're not going to be able to get all of this money, or you're not going to be able to climb a mountain or whatever if you're constantly injured, sick, bedridden, you can't walk up a flight of stairs without getting winded, whatever the thing might be, right? So I think health is the number one driver of all of that, and I think it gets overlooked, and I think that people are just they just need to it sounds bad, but like you almost need a wake up call. And I know that I've talked to a lot of friends about this, is you don't really think about prioritizing your health as much until something actually goes wrong and you see the glimpse into the future of what it might look like if you don't prioritize it.
Yeah, it's everything. I would always give this example of if you were on if you were out in the Bahamas and you had all the money in the world and you had everything you ever wanted, but you were sick, your life would still suck. But now I actually have a real example of this, so this is perfect. I was in Mexico 2 months ago, and we did the whole thing. We flew out to Puerto Vallarta for a week, booked all the excursions, bouged it up. We were going to go and take a boat out to go and snorkel on these private islands that you can't get access to unless you go with these special guide groups. We took a trip to the largest suspension bridge in the entire world, did the infinity pool, all that stuff. I had a sore throat and a sinus infection. And multiple times on that trip, we were at a taco stand, and I didn't give a crap about the taco. I just wanted to go back to the hotel and sleep. And
Yep.
so at the end of the day, you could be in absolute paradise with everything you ever wanted. If you have a sore throat, game over. Who cares? And when it comes to just physical health, if you're not physically able to go and do whatever it is, or if you're not sleeping enough and you're just exhausted, it is so much harder to actually enjoy your life.
Yep. And I like saying that, especially when I don't want to, I don't know, eat a healthy meal or drink more water or go for a run or lift weights or take my supplements or whatever it might be, right? The big driver that always gets me is, okay, don't do it for yourself. Do it for your future spouse and your kids, right? If you want to be able to play with your kid, catch with your kids, or run around with them in a field, or take a trip with them when you're 65, right? You're going to have to start taking care of your health. And if you don't want to do it for yourself, and that's okay sometimes because that's just being human. Think about them, and think about how much happier they would be if you're be able to be physically present and healthy. And obviously there's the other extreme of that is you maybe you have kids late and you die early because you didn't take care of your health, and your kids only get to have, I don't know, 20, 25 years, right? My parents are are much older and they've taken great care of their health and stuff. And I'm really fortunate with that because if they didn't, who knows, maybe in the next 10 years something could turn down, you know? It's a big priority. So it all comes down to your why, right? You just got to find the why that matters. And if it's not your why, it's somebody else's why.
Yeah, it's everything. Is there something for you that you feel like was a wake up call when it comes to your health? Or like you're saying with your parents raising you with good health and they're in good health, is it something that was just kind of passed on to you?
I think I was very lucky that the lifestyle that my parents lived when I was little, just me being in that environment, allowed me to kind of take it on. My dad used to take me to the gym and we would lift when I was 14. And I think that that was kind of where I kicked it off. I played soccer in high school, so a lot of running. It kind of made me hate running a little bit, which is ironic to where I'm at now. But I think that those things were the main drivers. I would say that the food that we always had in our household was more leaning towards the healthier or clean, organic, whole food, whatever side of things that you want to say. But I also think in terms of maybe a turning point for me when I was in college, maybe I want to say late sophomore year, drinking a lot, right? And it was just doing the typical freshman year, sophomore year of college type of stuff. And I got to a point where I actually felt like my body was slowly giving out, right? And I could feel the effect on my cardiovascular ability. I was gaining a little bit of weight, holding water in my face, kind of winded after long walks and stuff like that. And I just kind of felt like is this really? You only get we talked about this. 78 is when most males die in the U.S., right? You only get a finite amount of time on the earth. Do I really want to spend my time feeling like shit, frankly? You know what I mean? And I mean, I think alcohol definitely has a place in the social aspect of things. I think it plays a great role in meeting people and really enjoying things with your friends. Like if I go to a concert or I go on a trip like to Iceland, like having a few drinks and stuff, like that's perfectly acceptable. But the boozing and excessively is a big thing. I think that something that a lot of people, a lot of young men that I have been friends with in the past that have dealt with is boozing excessively and not boozing in moderation because it's really hard to find the cap for it. And I think that that has a really downturn effect on your health. And especially if you try and quantify it, say you go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, you have 8 beers that each night, just put it in a hypothetical example, that's it's going to be close to a beer a week for the entire year. So if you do that for 2 weekends straight, you're drinking at least a drink a week for the entire year, and that's just not even the cap of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that you just kind of got to put it in perspective. And another thing with the alcohol that was kind of another big driver for me was you don't lose the night, right? You're having a great time, you're spending it with family. That's fantastic. But you do lose the next whole day. And it's not the same for everybody. People are good about not being hungover or just being active and whatnot, but you no matter who you are, you're gonna have negative effects either cognitively or physically, right? I'm not gonna go drink 10 beers and then go for a 10-mile run tomorrow. I would feel horrible and probably not even get close to completion. So, I mean, I think everything's great in moderation, but that was kind of the turning point for me in terms of more like the health and fitness type stuff.
Do you have any tips on moderation for whether I guess, what is your opinion, like you've already said, with drinking? It seems like you're in the camp of it's okay every once in a while, which I think is good. I think it's good that a lot of people in the health and wellness space are saying you don't need to be so extreme. You just need to be reasonable with your
Hmm.
life.
Yeah.
But what is your opinion on stuff like that, or the occasional bag of Doritos, the occasional Oreo, that type of stuff?
Yeah. I think that I think being too extreme is going to have an inverse effect almost every single time. When you are extremely restrictive with food or alcohol, it leads to binging. And I think that that's been proven a lot. So I think allowing yourself a little grace is a good thing. And at the end of the day, anyone that says you if you eat healthy and don't drink for most of the time and then you have a slice of cake or a few beers, like that is just not going to do anything to your progress. Like anyone that says anything different is just wrong, right? Like you're going to be okay. And I think like anything in moderation, it's okay. I would say I like to limit my drinking now to trips or special events. So if I go, like I just went to Iceland, or if I go back to Europe this summer, or I'm going out to California next week, like if I have a drink here or there, like great, you know? And I think that you don't want to take away from the social piece of things. So much of what we do activity wise as humans is revolves around some sort of drinking or eating, right? So if you don't do either of those things or you don't allow yourself to enjoy it a little bit, you're going to be restricting yourself socially, and that in itself can have more severe effects than having a cake or a beer, you know?
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. I've seen you make some videos about superfoods and things that like you should be eating this, and also just sort of low cost, high protein meals and that sort of stuff. Could you give me a few recommendations in terms of diet, foods, things that I should be looking at?
Yeah, of course. I am a firm believer of the 80/20 rule. So 80% of the stuff that you eat should be completely clean, and the other 20% you can kind of, obviously to an extent, kind of do what you want with that. I would say that I'll give you an example for my diet. I eat eggs, egg whites, vegetables. That's my breakfast typically. Some sort of sausage, some chicken sausage. I eat chicken, rice, or beef, rice, potatoes, rice, or whatever, beef, potatoes. And then typically my meal at night is going to be some Greek yogurt, some fruit, some honey, some almond butter, sometimes some granola, and then typically the same thing as my lunch was. And that's very boring. Some people obviously aren't, like they just can't do it, right? And I think that a lot of that just it's what works for me. And like I said on a few other topics, you just kind of got to figure out what works. I found that eating that way is one, the cheapest, two, the easiest, because I can cook all of that in large batches. So I'll meal prep on a Sunday and I'll get all my meals ready for Monday through Friday when I'm working. Because frankly, when I work during the week, I'm up and I work out and I go directly to work and I come home and I'll eat that meal and I'll eat. But outside of that, I'm just working on my content stuff, right? So I just don't have time to be thinking about food, cooking the food, going to get the food, for different types of meals. So it's all a convenience thing for me. And it just so happens that the most convenient thing is also the most boring, which is also the healthiest and has had the best effect on my body. So I think you just kind of got to experiment. I would say that if you just stick to your lean protein sources, your standard carbs, your potatoes, your rice, your oats, and in terms of breakfast, eggs, that oatmeal that I just spoke of, and the yogurt. If you just stick to kind of the staples, fruits and vegetables, that's that's where you're going to derive a lot of your benefit. The nice thing about, you got to be careful here, but the nice thing about where we're at nowadays is a lot of the foods that aren't exactly super healthy have been created to be like a little bit better. Like there's like no fat cheese, right? Like that's something that wasn't around like a super long ago, and obviously there's some sort of chemical formulation modification going on with that. But if you love cheese and like you feel like you need it, there are alternatives for that. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, and you want to stick to the stuff that has been around for 200 years. That's another big thing that I see people talk about, is if it wasn't here 200 years ago, maybe it's probably not the best for you. But at the same time, there's ways to kind of to curve sweet tooth and whatnot. My girlfriend has a big sweet tooth, and when we kind of experiment with different variations of stuff, right? You can make a lot of yummy food and good foods like cakes and bread and all this stuff. Like we'll do sourdough bread and she'll throw in the sugar-free chocolate chips, right? Like that's just an easy way to mess around with stuff. There's low calorie um, like frostings and whatnot. And like there's just we live in a world where there's a lot of good alternatives for it, but I would say my rule of thumb is lean protein, whole foods, standard carbs, and just know your body, right? Everyone, your caloric intake is going to be different. From some dude running 20 miles a day, he's going to need a lot, like 5,000 calories, right? Whereas you're not going to need, if you ate 5,000 calories and you only did 2 miles a day, you're gonna gain some weight, and that's just the reality of humans. So
Yeah, I think so many people overcomplicate just general health. And I see, honestly, the thing I see the most is with diet. And I feel
mhm.
like there's sort of two camps. There's a camp of what you're talking about right now, just if it's lean food, if it's been here for 200 years, eat it, it's probably good. And then there's this other thing from the wellness space specifically. And I would delineate between fitness space and wellness space. In the wellness space, there's this thing of you have to eat this super weird random niche thing that we recently discovered that's absolutely perfect for you and it's going to give you all these benefits and suddenly you're going to open your third eye and you're going to be able to see God. And
hmm
the decision fatigue is real, like you're saying. Eat the same thing every single day. Just pick a workout routine that works for you. And honestly, it might not be the most optimal, perfect, amazing thing, but if it's 80% there, 90% there, and you can actually sustain it for your life, it's way easier.
Yep. And I like that you just brought up decision fatigue. I was looking for that word in my head earlier and I just couldn't find it. But reducing the amount of decisions that you have to make on a day-to-day basis, even outside of diet and health, it does wonders. I think Sundays are the most important day of the week, at least for me. It allows me to get prepared for the week. I'm so busy Monday through Friday. So when I do have a good Sunday and I can cook all of my meals, I can plan what I'm going to do during the week. I can get my laundry done. I can clean the house. I can do all of these things. And then it allows me to be a more productive person during the week. So I think that a lot of the stuff, there's a lot of fluff out there, and social media has done a lot of bad stuff in terms of the fluff. And I think that the more basic you can keep stuff, the better. A lot of the stuff out there nowadays, it's just hard because there are studies for a lot of the new stuff that have come out that said, hey, there's benefits in focus and it'll clear your skin up a little bit and maybe put on a little bit of muscle or have some better cognitive benefits, right? But at the same time, it hasn't been around long enough to maybe see the side effects of it, right? And it's just kind of a fine line. And like you said, it's just whatever works best for you. And if you're able to make it fit into your budget, your time, and the palate, your palate, then that's great.
Kind of on that topic, when it comes to things like supplementation and whatnot, how big of a difference do those things actually make? And then what matters and what's just total BS?
Yeah. I'm going to tell you the two things that I stand by for supplements that I think are no brainer. I'll go three. Fish oil. So get your omega 3s in. The difficult thing, or I'll preface this with the difficult thing with supplements are people are taking these things and they don't know if their body actually needs them. There are tests out there nowadays where you can go in and you can see if you're deficient in certain things and you can track your food for a week. And if you're like me and you're eating relatively the same thing every single day, you can track your food and you can see what you're deficient in. You don't need to be someone that pounds 5 oranges in a morning is not going to need vitamin C. Like it's just you're not going to need to supplement for it. So really knowing and understanding your diet, right? Like I live in Minnesota. I in the winter, we have short days and we don't get all it's really cloudy. So like some vitamin D supplementation is great for me, but someone who lives in Arizona does not need that, right? That's just the reality of it. I would say that fish oil, very studied, very important for your heart and your brain. It's just kind of a no-brainer. It's very easy, it's very cheap. Get it anywhere. I get it at Costco. It's inexpensive, right? Creatine. This is an interesting one because it's been around for a long time. There's a lot of testing that says it helps your recovery, and I think that's true. But the more interesting thing is the studies that have come out that have said that it allows you to sleep. There's studies that come out that said it allows you to sleep less. So it says that if you take certain amounts of creatine, I believe it's 10, at least 10 grams, might be even closer to like 15 or 20, you might be able to kind of make up some of that sleep loss. Say if you make 6 hours, maybe it'll get you to 6.5, something like that. I don't necessarily know what the studies have said or how credible that is, but that's just some of the things I've seen. I do know that there have been a lot of studies that come out that said it improves cognitive function. That I believe is true. I would say that there's the studies that have said that creatine makes you lose hair. That's a huge.
Yeah, we need to hit on this because I made a video a year ago talking about why engineers need to take creatine, and I was wearing a baseball hat. All of the comments were either, I need to start taking creatine so I can get smarter, or, bro, show me your hair.
Yeah, so I have seen a lot of, I've done a good amount of research. I think that's proven to not be true by a lot of people. Yep. So I would say that's in the BS category. I think it improves cognitive function. I would say that there might not be enough research there, but there are some small studies that have shown that a little bit more. There are studies that have shown specifically in women that taking 10 grams of creatine can help reduce anxiety for them. I think that's an interesting one. Also kind of in the area of, yeah, there's a few studies that have shown this, but we're in the middle here and there's nothing that's been super definitive, but there's no reason that you shouldn't take it. You can get it in food and your body naturally produces it. So you need to make sure that you're not overdoing it. I've seen people that do 20 grams a day. So you'd have to be doing a lot to really overdo it. But that's my second no-brainer. And then magnesium. This is a really strong one for me. And I didn't start taking it until about a year ago. And it has been night and day difference for my sleep as well as my emotional regulation. It does a wonderful job of kind of calming you down a little bit. I wouldn't say it's in the ashwagandha category, but it does have effects of being able to kind of control your nervous system a little bit better, and it helps you sleep. It allows you to sleep deeper and allows you to fall asleep faster. And it's another one of those things where it's really cheap and there have been no proven downsides to taking it. But once again, you don't want to overdo it.
Yeah. Are you L-threonate, glycinate, whatever?
Yep. Citrate.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice.
Yep. So
is there benefits to one versus the other?
So citrate is easier for your stomach to digest, I believe.
Okay.
It's either glycinate or citrate, but so I think citrate is the one where it's easier for stomach to digest. It's all relatively the same. If you don't typically have stomach problems and you take it with a meal and 8 ounces of water, you're probably going to be okay. But in terms of like overall benefits with your sleep or whatever, it's all relatively the same. Each variation kind of has its own little spin on things, but just magnesium in general is the big point.
I do want to comment too, because you mentioned taking vitamin D for people who are in less sunny areas. If you guys are taking vitamin D, do vitamin D3 with K2. That way you can actually absorb it. But Let's break down. I want to hear, because you're saying, how you prep on Sunday and then you go in through your super busy week. What does your week look like, starting with the first 90 minutes of your day and then just expanding that out to what does a day in the life of Christian look like?
Yeah, of course. And I'm going to preface it. I'm just a regular dude. There's nothing. I'm not some dude who wakes up and doesn't go on his phone and puts his red light therapy on, you know what I mean? And like sits in his cold plunge for 5 minutes.
Which is, it's big, because I feel like so many people feel this pressure to be like, the first 5 minutes of my day, I immediately dart out of bed and I do 5,000 push-ups. And then I hang from the pull-up bar. It's like, you look at a lot of people who are super successful. They're like, I get up and I spend 90 minutes drinking my coffee.
Yep. And I think, honestly, a big goal in my life, if I like look out, we just talked about goals a little bit ago, but if you look out, the goal is to get to a point in my life where I can get up and I can just waltz through the morning. You know what I mean? The goal is to not slow mornings. I think is the best luxury ever. Being able to take your time in the morning, and it does so many benefits for your cortisol levels and just how you are set up for the day. If you're able to do slow mornings, these guys that do the cold plunges and all this stuff, that's fantastic. And I am jealous and I wish I could do that. But in reality, I wake up five, so I'm anywhere between 5:20 and 5:40, depending on if I hit snooze once. And I get up, brush my teeth, throw in my contacts, just tidy up a little bit, go downstairs, pack my lunch for the day, or it's already prepped, so throw it in my bag, uh, get in my creatine. So I'll just get my water bottle, fill it up, throw my creatine in, just drive to the gym. If it's a run day, I'll run for whatever it's on my docket. If it's not, I will do just my weights. I just do push pull legs, depending on if I end up being sore. Sometimes I'll throw arms in there, but it's literally just push pull legs or I run. I do that for I don't lift for any more than an hour would be the absolute maximum for my lift, and then no less than 30 minutes would be the absolute lowest. But my lifts are just 45 minutes. I go in, I do typically it depends on the lift, but I'll do 3 sets of 8 roughly for whatever it might be, 4 sets of 8, and I'll get done. 3, 4 if I'm lucky times a week. I'll go and I'll do a 12 to 14 minute sauna, and I will shower up and I will go to work, and I'll work from 8 to 5 typically. Get home, eat, and then I'll just eat and I'll start scripting and I'll respond to comments. I'll try and get my post out. I try and post once a day at least, and it's a battle, but it's literally, I'm telling you, during the week, Monday through Friday, it's just work out, do my day job, come home, eat more, and work on my side hustle or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and that's why I'm such a big pusher of winning your weekends, because it's so easy to just fall into routine with the week. I do the same thing. Wake up, kind of slowish morning, but usually do some work, then go to actual work, come back, train something for whatever it is that I'm doing, make a bunch of videos, go to bed, same exact thing over and over. And so winning the weekends is massive. Do you have any habits or things that you've implemented into your day that you feel like have had a disproportionate ROI in your life?
Yeah, it's honestly, I have made it a super big priority to get in water. I think
Mm,
being dehydrated is a huge issue for a lot of people. And I mean, it's just you can go on and on. If you're hydrated, you get better sleep. You have better cognitive ability during the day. My workouts are going to be better. Like I'm just going to feel better. Like that's just what it is. How are you gonna be effective and work if you have a headache from being dehydrated? So being extremely hydrated for me, I've messed around with electrolytes. I don't have any name brands that I bought. I typically just do salt. Sometimes I'll throw lemon in my water, stuff like that. But just being hydrated has been great. Minnesota's difficult, but I try and get some sort of morning sunlight. That's a pretty standard thing. But I mean, up until about 2 weeks ago, the sun didn't rise in Minnesota until 7:30. So it's just difficult. And by that time, I'm pretty much driving to work. So I mean, it's a hard thing for me. Another thing that I have been making it a point, especially the last 3 months, is I try and get a walk in at least twice a day. So I'll do one in the morning. Typically, it's my walk to from the parking garage to my work, and hopefully that's outside. Sometimes it's freezing, so I'll take the Skyways in Minneapolis. But that's a huge thing. It kind of gets your body rolling and kind of clears your head. I try and not wear headphones because we are extremely overstimulated nowadays. So having a little peace and quiet has been great. Midday after my lunch, I will walk I will not miss my after walk lunch or my after lunch walk, geez. And it's just a game changer. It is so good for your just 10 minutes. So good for your digestion. You will feel so much less lethargic. You'll feel more energetic. You'll be less bloated. Like it is just and it helps you get your steps in. That's another thing. So getting my walks in and being hydrated have been they're so simple, but they're so high ROI. Jeez.
Yeah, I think simply walking, in my opinion, is the easiest low hanging fruit when it comes to
Yep.
fitness. In terms of, I mean, number one, just weight loss. Simply getting 8 to 10,000 steps is amazing
Yep.
for you, but also from a mental standpoint. And like you're saying, it does not count if you go on a walk and you're just doom scrolling reels on the walk. Just stay on your couch at that point. If you're
Hmm.
going to walk, put your phone in your pocket and just meander around for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It is so big for your mental health, in my opinion.
Yeah. It for me, it is so much more about the mental clarity and
Yeah.
just the space than it is the actual health benefits. If you walk 8 to 10,000 steps, you're burning probably 400 calories, the average person, which is a small meal. So that's fantastic if your goal is to lose weight. And the other side of things, if you hit 7,000, 7,000 is the real number. There was, I forget what year, 2020 or something like that, the 10K step challenge came out, and everyone made it seem if you didn't get 10,000 steps and you got 8,000, you were going to pass away or something. When in reality, 7,000 is the number where you see decrease in cardiovascular risk and all cause mortality. So, I mean, that's kind of where you gotta be at. Obviously, if you can do more, that's great. But anything less, you're putting yourself at more risk. Another thing about the walking is if you are someone who's bulking or trying to gain a little bit of weight, it makes you feel less full and you can be hungry from it. It's great. Although I think it does burn calories, but I think that because you're burning calories, it makes you more hungry and allows you to kind of eat more. So that's another quick hack.
Yeah, cool. There is no magic number when it comes to steps or anything. That's how I feel about sauna too. I'm a
Hmm.
big fan of sauna and the heart benefits that you get from it and just the general decrease in all cause mortality. But yeah, it's not like, oh, if I'm in there for 5 days instead of 6 days, I'm going to die. Just
Hmm.
be better overall seems to be really all that matters. When it comes to having a busy 9 to 5, like you have, what do you feel like are some of the, I guess let's just say if you were going to prescribe somebody, these are your non negotiables, this is what you should be doing, this is the bare minimum that actually matters in your life. What are those things for someone?
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on what this person's goals are, right? If they're trying to lose weight or gain weight or whatever, if they're just trying to get more healthy, better sleep. Sleep 7 hours a night minimum, maybe a little bit more if you're a female. Sleep at the same time every night. Get 3/4 of a gallon of water in. Follow the 80-20 rule. If you do those three things, I'll say four, get 7,000 steps a day. If you do those three things or those four things, you are going to be worlds better in terms of feeling, just weight loss, just how your body looks in general. I'm a big believer that you can work out. Say you do no cardio, and you get 7,000 steps a day, and you lift weights 3 times a week, just 3 times a week for 30 minutes. You are going to be a completely different person. That's the problem with social media a little bit has been the hardo gym people that say that you need to be in the gym 7 days a week, and that's how you're gonna gain muscle and be healthy and stuff. When in reality, less in that case is almost better for you because you're not recovering if you're in the gym 7 days a week. And I'm someone who I lift every single day that I don't run, and every single day that I don't lift, I run. So I'm doing something 7 days a week, but that is because I have to and I can't get in my runs and I will lose muscle and stuff, right? So and I think a lot of the people that say the 7 days a week aren't saying that because they truly believe it, but I think that they are so mentally wrapped up in their routine that they just feel like that's right. And I have been going to the gym for 7 years now, and if I don't get a lift in, and say like if I'm on vacation, I can get over it. But if I'm at home and I don't get a lift in, like my mental health deteriorates a little bit. So there's a lot of people out there that just they need it. Like the trade off between how they're gonna feel mentally is worse than maybe not recovering a little bit because they're lifting 7 days a week. So I mean, it all comes down to just doing what's best for you and not being obsessive with certain things is great, but in terms of health stuff, there's a fine line that you're dancing there.
I do think it's just kind of as we were talking about in the beginning of this, it's important to just define for yourself what your goals are. I mean, if your goals are to go and run a big race, be it a half marathon, marathon, ultra, whatever, your goals are to gain all this strength and be able to lift a certain amount of weight, you're going to have to make certain sacrifices just generally. But at the same time, when it comes to just starting, just how do I get healthier? Based off of what you're saying, it's really only an hour a day, maybe, of stuff that you got to do.
Yep. And a big thing that I've learned and that helped me and helped a lot of my friends is habit stacking. Just
Yeah,
being
talk to
able
me about
to,
that.
yeah, being able to find things that stack on top of each other, the good things, is so beneficial. You can, if I'm stressed about my content and I need to get a video scripted and it's already 8 p.m. and I'm jammed up with this or that and I haven't got my steps in, walk and be on your phone and script, right? Or if you have laundry that needs to be done, or you need to cook, or like all of these things, you can do a lot of these things on top of each other. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? A lot of the stuff that you are doing that is good for you can be done together and simultaneously. So I think that that's a big thing that people get really stressed out about is like they just feel like they don't have enough time in the day. And I feel like that all the time. Like I wish there were 48 hours in one day versus 24, but in reality, you do have enough. Everyone has the same amount of time in the day, and it is truly what you do with it. And if you're able to do multiple things at the same time, then you're going to be far better off than anyone else.
Absolutely. We're both a big fan of metrics. I've seen that you've posted some videos about things that you track. What do you feel like are the big things that everybody should be tracking or just paying attention to in their lives?
Yeah, this is a big one. There's not there's a lot of them, but see, and I don't want to start listing them off because sometimes in the way that my videos come off, it feels like I'm saying you need to be doing all of these things at the same time, otherwise you fail. That's not the case. If you can pick a few and they work well for your life, that's great. If I were to pick, say, three of them, sleep. It all comes back to sleep. But sleep, so the amount of hours slept, your wake, and your bedtime. So your consistency, your diet. That's another thing. I found that when I stick to my diet, I feel a lot better mentally, physically, versus if I go and I don't know, I'll have maybe a slice of cake or I'll have a pizza. And I track how I feel after I eat those things. So I'm able to kind of have a know when I'm going out to eat and stuff like, oh, hey, I have this podcast with Alex tomorrow. I probably shouldn't be crushing an entire Domino's pepperoni pizza because I know I'll be a little bit foggy mentally or I'll be bloated and I won't feel as good when I'm talking to him, right? So just having a really good sense of your body and what things work well and what things don't work well with your body is a huge thing. I want to say on top of that, this is a kind of a not exactly my niche that I've been super pushy in, but finances is a huge thing. My day job is in finance, and we talked about it earlier. The kind of quality of your life unfortunately revolves around money a lot of the time because you can't do a lot of the things that you want to do. And outside of health being the number one factor of like taking your happiness, like everyone's got a million problems until health. People also have a million problems until you have a money problem, right? And it's a huge stressor for people. So being on top of that, and I do think that our school system doesn't do a good enough job of teaching personal finance. My high school, I was fortunate enough to have a personal finance class, but once again, I was a 16-year-old, 17-year-old. I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on, nor did I remember what he said 2 years down the line. So I think that being financially illiterate is very dangerous, especially for young people. So tracking how much you're making, how much you're spending, and how much you're investing are the three big things. You obviously, the goal is to be making more than you're spending, but you only know that if you track your spending, right? And I think that a big statistic that kind of hurts me is I think it's 40% of Americans say they can't cover a surprise $500 charge. So, and I mean, that's scary. People need to, I mean, life comes at you fast and from different angles, and you need to be prepared to kind of fight off whatever that is. So, that investing, it doesn't even have to be, I don't know, S&P 500 type of ETF type deal, but it can just be an emergency fund, right? Putting money aside in a high yield savings account that's going to grow 3 to 4% annually, but your money is going to be safe and it's set aside. I think everyone, a big thing that I would recommend is having a 6 month emergency buffer. And you should probably not be doing much with your money until you have that, because like we talked about, life is it's unexpected and it comes at you fast, and and it's surprising sometimes, so you got to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I mean, you will. Everybody has a million problems until they have a health problem, but you will have a health problem
Oh yeah.
eventually. Something's going to come up, or you're going to have a kid that gets sick. If you're a parent, car's going to break down, whatever. And I think, like you're saying, the big things is just save more than you spend, or spend less than you make, I guess.
Hmm.
Make sure that you're allocating money in a way that's effective and efficient, and put it into good investments. Also, save your money. Where do you see, as someone who's working in the finance field, where do you feel like most people go wrong, kind of beyond that, beyond just the standard advice, the Dave Ramsey advice, if you will? Once people get past that, what are the common pitfalls that you see people completely missing?
It's the external validation thing once again.
Yeah.
You're spending your money on the wrong things and for the wrong reasons. You should be spending your money on, you should be able to make sure 100% that you're covering the bare necessities. But outside of that, in my opinion, could be everyone different. I think spending money on experiences is going to top the Gucci bag and the Lamborghini, right? Every single time. So really making sure that you have a good understanding of what you value is very important. I think that going forward, you need to be more prepared. Like we talked about before, you have more time now and freedom and response, and less the least responsibility now in your 20s than you will. Your problems now are different than your problems in 5 years. So being able to kind of forecast out a little bit what your life is going to look like and where your money is going to need to go, so you can start preparing for that. If you want to take a trip to Japan in 5 years, start open a savings account and label it Japan trip and start putting a little bit of money into that. Or if you want to get a house and you are going to have a mortgage with whoever it might be, open a savings account and start putting money aside. I think that people look a little bit too near to in the near term and not in the long term, because the reality is the economy is the economy, and it is unpredictable and will always be unpredictable. That's why people say don't try and time the market and just invest in ETFs and stuff, because no one really knows. There's a few hedge funds out there that consistently beat the market and have historically, but you and I and most people aren't those people, right? So just look in the far term and do a lot of planning. That's probably the biggest thing. You gotta make sure that all of your bases, the important bases in your life, are covered, but that requires you to know what those bases are going to be. So take some time and look into that.
Absolutely. And I think piggybacking off your point of, you're always just going to have more problems. You're always going to have more things that come up. Even if you are somebody in your 20s, like you've said, and I know plenty of people who are already married, they already have a kid or whatever. And yeah, 100%, you're going to be more busy than the college kid who's just doing whatever. At the same time, if you have one kid right now, you might have two in the future. You might have three in the future. All of a sudden, your wife or your husband gets sick or whatever. I mean, ultimately, I think the concept still applies as you start to move into these quote unquote adult phases of life. You're still going to have more responsibilities in the end. And then the other thing is, I think a lot of people are kind of scared to have these conversations with significant others, for example, about when do we actually want to get married? When do we actually theoretically want to have a kid, if we were going to have a kid? Or do we want to have a kid? And yada, yada, yada. But I think having those conversations and asking yourself and the people closest to you, how do we actually want to design our life, is very important, because otherwise, like you're saying, life's just going to come at you. And all of a sudden, you're going to be sitting around with your hands empty going, how did I end up here?
Yep. And I think I'm a firm believer that the tough conversations are the best conversations, right? And the earlier that you have them, it's always going to be the best outcome, because the longer that you push that stuff off, like you said, your hands are going to become more and more tied, right? So being able to kind of get out in front of that stuff is very, very important. And I think a lot of the issue that comes about from that is just lack of transparency and lack of alignment, right? The idea of having those conversations is you will have to be transparent to kind of get out of it what you want, and you have to be aligned, right? If you're not both exactly aligned on kind of what you want to do, then you're going to end up having problems down the line. And if that takes months and stuff and you have to modify the plan a little bit, that's okay. But you don't want to get have a conversation with your spouse and they want to buy a house in 7 months and you're thinking about 2.5 years, right? It's gonna cause problems. And if you meet in the middle at a year and a half or whatever it might be, then that's great. But the closer that you can get combined with each other is really great. I also wanted to bring up I kind of went over my head, but another thing that I like to track is, because you brought up the as we get older thing. We often lose touch with friends and family as we get older. So something that I like to track is just relationship touch points. And I talked about it a little bit earlier, but my parents are on the older side, right? And I just graduated college, so I don't see my buddies as much anymore. And it's hard, right? But something that you hear all the time is when people get older and they have family and a spouse, your time is even less. And the likelihood that you're going to text Jim or Jack or whoever it is, and they're going to be able to meet up with you for a beer at the same time as you're available, it's very unlikely. So the best thing that we can do is at least text or call. I love just shooting a text over to some of my buddies and just saying, hey, hope you've done well, or hope you're doing well, or whatever it might be. If I see that they posted on Instagram or LinkedIn that they got a new job, or they went to Thailand or Japan or whatever it might be, just say, hey, man, like, I hope you enjoyed your trip, or congrats on the new job. Like, small things like that matter. And it's really, people don't realize that, like, you need that type of support. Getting a text from, it seems such a like a minuscule thing, but getting a text from someone that they say congrats or like hope you're doing well does wonders for someone's mental health. And it's kind of crazy that technology has gotten so good and we've gotten even more connected, but we just don't reach out, and we're not as connected as we should be with all the opportunity that we have. And I think that there's a million songs and 1,000 videos that are about things that people wish they could say, but they can't anymore because someone passed away or they moved away or something like that, in regards to someone that's important to their life. So you're never going to regret sending a text or calling your mom or your friend, but you will regret if you don't do that and you can't anymore. So I think that it's such an important thing for your mental health, and it's not time consuming at all, and it does wonders for both you and your loved ones. So
Yeah, it's everything. I think if anybody who's listening to this can literally just spend 5 minutes a day shooting off texts, or what I like to do if I'm driving from work back to my apartment, or, going to go train or whatever, then I'll just hop on a call with somebody. And I don't feel like we can make the excuse of, oh, my life is too busy, I can't reach out. I mean, we all are driving an hour a day. Just call someone while you drive. Like you're saying, stack those habits. And then just spend a few minutes reaching out to people. And I think it's really important to hit on what you're saying with having text interactions that you're not asking for something. And it's not even something that they necessarily need to respond to. It's literally just saying, hey, Christian, I saw that you hit X number of followers on Instagram. That's super cool. Keep it up.
I think a big problem with the world that we live in is everything is transactional. I think that, unfortunately, it's human nature, but people just Like, I need something from you, you need something from me. Like, let's make a compromise. Like, maybe it's a spouse, like they need your financial support, or you need their financial support, and you need their love and comfort, right? But I mean, I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, but everything doesn't have to be like that. You know what I mean? Like, you can do things for free. You can do nice things that you don't even know have a great impact. Holding the door, texting people, like we just talked about. It's often the little things that matter to a lot of people. And another thing is you don't know what's going on in their everyone's life is messed up in some way. Everyone has a million problems in their life, and you don't know what's going on. So just being kind to people and checking in on people when they haven't necessarily given you a reason to be nice or check in is another important thing.
Kind of on this topic of relationships and sort of completely out of left field, but I was just thinking about it earlier when we were chatting about your stuff with content. Anybody listening to this, please, please, please post something on Instagram or do something. And this is not for you to generate some massive amount of followers. I just genuinely believe that the relationships that you can build through posting about what you care about are massive. When you were talking about earlier about how do we find like-minded people, how do we surround ourselves with the 5 people that are going to influence us the most? If you are constantly surrounded by just the 4 or 5 people that you've grown up with, that's great. But at the same time, if you really want to meet people that are like-minded to you, they have similar interests, they have similar goals, A, you can find that through posting content, and B, you can find that through going to things that you actually care about, going to run a marathon. Or the people that I meet on the side of a mountain are insane. Like, they're the craziest freaking people, because who's going to spend 3 days climbing to the top of a big, sharp, pointy, snowy rock? Only someone who's nuts.
Yeah, and I think that that's another huge thing with the internet that we've been very blessed with is the ability to connect. And I think that the way that I was going to make a video about this, but the way that the networking aspect has changed is is pretty crazy. And I think that the opportunity with the internet that you have nowadays is probably the greatest opportunity for anyone in a long time to meet new people and meet like-minded people, because it used to be you had to reach out and maybe have a one-on-one conversation or something. But with the internet, I can post a video and you can see it and be like, I like Christian's video. I align a lot with that, and we're very similar. Like, I'll just DM him a message, right? Just the posting, the outreach, and the opportunity that you have with posting. Like, some of the videos I posted, they got a couple 100,000 views. That's a lot of people that see that video, right? That's if you took a couple 100,000 people and you put them in an area, it's a lot of people. So just the capabilities of the reach and the variety of people that are out there, no matter how niche or abstract you think that your interests or wants to do or thoughts are, there are, I guarantee you, thousands and thousands of people that think the exact same way as you. And the only thing that separates you guys is you're not connected yet because you're not posting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that community's everything. Like we've been saying, the people you surround yourself with, the people that you allow to influence you will completely determine the outlook of your 30s, 40s, 50s, and then on from there.
Yeah,
It's big
totally.
stuff. Okay. I want to ask you a few random questions as we start to wrap this thing up. But
Sure.
first thing, number one, if you had to design a Health 101 class for college kids or high school kids, what do you think should be in it?
Oh man, we'll go with three. We'll say three main pillars. It's diet, sleep, and exercise. I would say that we'll go with diet first. The concept around diet, I think, has been a little turned around with social media, specifically people thinking that it has to be on the extreme side of things, when in reality it's quite simple. And I would focus on the simple whole foods that are, because I mean, in this economy, cheap and effective, right? And I think that there needs to be some sort of, I don't know, like weeding out of all the misinformation and over the top information that we see on social media nowadays, I think that the more simple that you keep a lot of this stuff, the better. You just need to sleep a little bit, you need to eat clean, and you need to drink water. Like, you don't need this ridiculous electrolyte powder and this ridiculous nootropic to be productive, and you don't need to have this ridiculous air filter in your room, otherwise you're going to sleep bad. You know what I mean? Like, there's a million things out there that just are too extreme, and the reality is the more boring and the more simple it is, the better.
Then what mistakes or actions do you feel like delay people's health journey the most?
Obsession over perfection. I think that people feel like they need to do everything perfectly, and the reality is they just need to start. The biggest holding back of anything, we could even talk about content with this, is you just need to begin. Everyone starts from somewhere. There is not a single thing in this world that you just can start and you'd be at the top. You got to climb up a mountain to get to the top of the mountain. You got to diet for and train for years to have a great physique. You got to run hours on end to run a full marathon. Like, you can't skip things. And I think that people are afraid of failure, and that's what stops them from starting. Everyone wants to just get to the end and be at the end because that skips the chance of failing because you already succeeded. When in reality, all the growth happens when you fail and you get back up and you try again. So the reality of things is you just need to start. Not starting, delaying, thinking that I need an awesome Sony camera to start making content and a nice mic, when in reality your iPhone or your Android and your AirPods are going to be just fine.
I think a lot of people are not necessarily scared of failing. They're scared of people's opinions of them after they fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the sooner you can remove yourself from really just caring about what the 5 random people are going to think about whatever it is that you're trying to do, the easier it all becomes. And like you're saying too, you're going to suck at everything. It doesn't matter what it is. You're not going to be good at it. But the only reason that people get good at anything, as far as I've seen, is just they put in repetitive, intentional time over time for a very long period of time. That's how you get good at something.
Yep. Just get compounds. And I totally agree. I think that's kind of the direction where I was going with the failing, because failing in public is what I meant with people being scared of. Because you fail privately and no one sees. It's like where you slip on a patch of ice and you look around and you're like, oh man, did anybody see that? If no one saw it, you don't care. But the thing with social media specifically is you're online. Someone's going to see it. And I always see videos about people going, oh man, I hope nobody finds this secret account. People are going to find it no matter what. And that's the whole point. When I started out, I was very nitpicky and afraid of my videos. Like, oh, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to look like an idiot? Who's going to see this? And as you do it, like you just said, you just keep trying, keep going, keep doing things, keep being repetitive and consistent. It gets a lot easier, and you stop thinking about a lot of that stuff. So like I said, you got to start, and you got to keep going, because that's the biggest thing, because you're going to fall down. It's just if you get back up and you keep going, you're going to end up finding success in some capacity. It's really hard to do something consistently for a long period of time and not improve at all.
Yeah, absolutely. What have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned making content over the past 6 months or so? How long have you been making videos for?
2.5 months.
Okay, 2.5 months. Okay, sweet. So what are some of the biggest things you've taken away?
Yeah. So like I said, 2.5 months. So I'm not going to have the stories of someone who's been doing it for years, but I do think I'll start with an algorithm-based thought. The consistency of your videos, you see it all the time. People say you got to post 3 times a day. You got to do all this stuff. I don't necessarily think that posting 3 times a day is something you need, but starting out, you do have to post probably every day, at least once, because these videos, when you post, you got to understand, if you make a new account and you post a video, it's going to everybody. The algorithm has no clue who you are or what this video is supposed to, who's supposed to reach or what it's supposed to accomplish, right? So when you do post these videos, the algorithm is understanding you a little bit more, and it's understanding your niche. I don't think you can go less than 30 days probably without posting every day and expect that this algorithm's going to know exactly who to push your videos for, right? Because if I make a health video and it gets seen by someone who, I don't know, loves video games, we're probably, maybe, like, obviously there's some crossover, but they're not probably going to want to follow my account and see my posts, which is okay. So just being consistent with posting. Another thing is just like we just talked about, not being perfect. You're going to suck. Everything's going to be ugly. You're going to cringe at your voice and your videos. That is just how it's going to be. And that is okay. That's completely part of the process, right? So just getting over the hump of understanding you're going to look like an idiot for a few weeks. That's probably the biggest thing as well. I think another misconception is that you have to have a niche. That's something that I was told for a while, but in reality, people just want authenticity and they want to see themselves in you a little bit, and that's what they value. So siloing yourself into a niche, like say I just wanted to talk about sleep, that might work, but I am not I don't have a medical degree in sleep, right? So I'm not an authoritative figure, so that probably wouldn't work for me. But I think a lot of people follow me because they like the area of my videos that I'm in and maybe my personality a little bit. So I think just being yourself is another big thing. You don't want to be someone who you're not, because you'll go 30 days and maybe you can make it faking a persona for 30 days, but in reality, it's probably not going to work out long term, and you're going to end up hating yourself and not enjoying making videos anymore, and that's just going to crash and burn. So
It's very hard to post consistently and pretend to be something that you're not. If you're one of these people who posts once every 6 months and it's the status update that you went over to this random country and it's beautiful, yeah, you can fake your life. But if you're actually putting yourself out there, people are going to know who you are. They're going to know what you're about. They're going to know how you operate, what your systems are, what's important to you, et cetera, et cetera. Is there anything that you feel maybe you expected to be the case and then it turned out not to be?
Ooh, interesting. I would say this. I've seen this here and there, but a lot of the support that you're gonna expect to get when you start posting, you would think it's gonna be from your friends. And I have gotten a lot of support from my friends, and I'm very grateful for that. But honestly, the majority of support, I get a good amount of messages, and it means the world to me, and is a big reason why I keep posting. But I get a lot of messages people are saying, "Hey, your content's great," or "Hey, your content's actually helping me out." And they'll send questions over, say, "Hey, like the guy we just talked about earlier, hey, my sleep schedule's this. What should I do?" And I'm able to kind of, obviously, I'm not perfect and I'm not some extreme expert in it, but I have dabbled enough in research and exploration with my own body that I can give my 2 cents on it, right? So just being able to help people has been a lot more of a realization for me. I thought going into it, I was just kind of gonna put content out and it's just gonna be me like exercising and all this stuff. But the most rewarding thing has been the feeling of being wanted or like needed for some help. Just helping people in general has probably been the best.
If I had to drop a small piece of advice in there, I do think it's very important, like you're saying, to engage with those people in your comments, engage with those people in your DMs. That's the community that you're building around your content. And those people are, I mean, your first couple years of making content, honestly, those people are your ride or die people that are along for the rest of the ride. And so it's very important to nurture them and everything from there. Let's hit some rapid fire questions real quick.
Sure.
Cool. So morning or night workouts?
Morning. I don't work out if it's past noon. I just skip it unless it's a run. I don't lift. It's a thing. I just can't do it.
Yeah. Steps per day
Flaw of
target?
mine.
Target for daily steps?
7,000.
Cool. Sauna, yes or no?
Absolutely. Way more beneficial than cold plunge. If I were to, it wouldn't even be close.
That was my next one. Cold plunge, yes or no? So sauna over cold plunge?
Cold plunge is great. I think that if you're not in an athlete where you're training excessively, the cold plunge really isn't super beneficial. There's some cognitive benefits, obviously some clarity. It helps recovery a little bit. But like for me, I'm lifting a couple times a week and I'm running. I'm only doing, I don't know, 25 miles a week. I don't need the cold plunge. I'm young enough where my body's going to recover. If some dude's doing 100-mile weeks and he's doing some weights, much more beneficial for him. But in terms of longevity, sauna knocks it out of the park by a mile.
Zone 2 cardio, is it worth the hype?
Absolutely. It is the key pillar of your heart health and your cardiovascular ability. You'll see it time and time again, but dudes who are elite runners will preach zone 2, and their zone 2 is like 6 minutes a mile and mine's like 9 minutes a mile, but it's whatever works for you. And if you had only one type of running to train for a full marathon or even an ultra, it's zone 2.
Cool. What is the most underrated food?
Oh man, let's think about this. Potatoes are very dense. It's not, see, it's underrated because it's a staple, but it is a dense food. It has a lot of volume, which means it satiates you a lot. So if you're trying to lose weight, it'll keep you full and you won't be snacking and all this stuff. It's a clean carb. It has a lot of variety. You can do mashed, baked, broiled, all of this stuff, or boiled, excuse me. It has all of this stuff. It has great benefits for your gut health. You can cook it, put it in the fridge, and make it a good starch source. It's great.
Potatoes it is. What is the most overrated supplement?
Oh God. I want to say multivitamin, but that's just because I think that a lot of people get their vitamins in different forms, and a lot of the vitamins that you get from a multi, you just piss out.
Yeah, I think
If you have a balanced diet and you take multivitamins and you go look at your pee after, it'll be yellow because you're peeing out vitamins.
I think a lot of people have really expensive pee.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, taking so much random crap that you're just peeing out. Cool. Last thing I want to ask you, and I plan to ask everybody on this show, is what is one lesson that you've learned at some point in your life that A, you wish you learned earlier, or B, if you had learned it prior to when you did, it would have massively changed everything?
Okay, that's a good one. I'm gonna kind of do two here.
Let's do it.
The reality is nobody really gives a shit about you. And for you to think that people care about like what you're doing, this is in terms of content, right? So doing things that are scary for you, posting, starting a business, posting a run that might be like 11 minutes a mile and like not super fast in terms of some of the other stuff you see. The reality is nobody really cares about you, and everyone else's life is so busy that they shouldn't and probably don't have time to worry about you. So you just need to do what makes you happy and do what you want to do, and that's how you live a fulfilled life. And I think that moving into that a little bit is you're supposed to have problems. A life with no problems is a boring life. And the whole point, I think, of having a fulfilled life is being able to solve problems every day, right? Problems come in different sizes. Obviously, if it's a health problem, that's one thing, but things come up in your life, and a lot of the satisfaction that we get as humans is being needed or wanted or like just needed to help solve a problem. So when problems do come up, I think that you shouldn't run away from them or be negative towards them, but more think of it as a way of how do I use this to grow and make myself better and really push my limits.
Dude, Christian Lange, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's a great call, and let's do it again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Ton of fun. Thanks, man.
Thank you.